good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever and whenever you are listening and tuning in. Welcome to our latest edition of What Caught My Eye, where you'll get the latest and most up-to-date info from this last week in the sports world, from what's happened in the playing field of competition. I am always your host, the coach, Nick Vesci. I'm joined by the boy, Stephen Vesci, and the man, Stephen Komlo. Long time no see.
Gentlemen.
Which was a couple days ago.
Yeah.
As always, follow us on all of our socials at WCME_sports on Instagram and Twitter, which is now X for whatever reason. On Facebook, find us there. Also listen to our episodes. They drop every Wednesday at noon on Spotify and on YouTube. Before we end the stuff, just a teaser for everyone out there. We will have a very, very special guest joining us later in the episode. But I'm not going to give away their name.
There we go. Tease them a little bit.
Yeah, just get.
You almost sound like a professional there.
Hook them.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So, spoiler alert, you want to stay tuned for the whole episode tonight. But our top catch, as we were talking about before we got on the air, was going to be the Stanley Cup Finals and how that matchup got set the other night with the Oilers defeating the Stars in 6 games. They'll be taking on the Florida Panthers, who are making a return trip to the finals. They made it last year. I thought it was interesting. Both teams, the Oilers and the Panthers, in their conference finals, had the exact same road. They each won game 1 on the road. Then they lost the next 2 games. And they won 3 straight games and clinched in game 6 at home.
And which I thought was kind of conference trophies.
Good. You're not supposed to.
Nope. Barkov did last year.
Yeah.
Look what happened.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel like Messier in '94 did, and they wound up winning. So it's. I don't know how much validity there is in that superstition, but I thought that was kind of interesting that they both started off that way. A couple interesting facts and figures before we dive into the matchups and what we're going to be looking for. Corey Perry, who, interesting cat. He's not completely on the level of Brad Marchand, but for a lot of people, he's kind of close. But Corey Perry became the first player ever to make it to the conference finals with 5 different teams. And now he's the first player ever to make it to the Stanley Cup finals with 5 different teams. So he did so in 2007. He did so in 2007 with the Ducks, which is they won the Stanley Cup that year, I believe. 2020 with the Stars, 2021 with the Canadians, 2022 with the Lightning, and now 2024 with the Oilers. So he's gone to 4 of the last 5 Stanley Cups. He's been in the finals, which is kind of wild. And they talk about veteran presences all the time. That's kind of what he brings and why he's out there. That's why I would say a big reason why those teams succeed. Obviously, they're more to a team than just one person, but he's the type of guy that you bring in that elevates your squad from losing early in the playoffs to get into the finals. But like you said, Komlo, I think he's got 1 ring from Anaheim in 2007.
Yeah, he won in Anaheim, and he's on a horrible losing streak right now.
Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Edmonton, they're back in the finals for the first time since losing to the Hurricanes in 7 games in 2006. I believe that was Rod the Bod. Rod Brindamore was the captain, I think, of that Hurricanes team.
Yes, he was.
If I'm not mistaken. The Oilers are also trying to become the first Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup since Montreal did in 1993, and that is, as we all know, the curse of Marty McSorley is kind of what happened there. Little background to it. Basically, the Canadiens coach, without getting super into it, pulled a very suspect stick check to check the curvature of Marty McSorley's stick on the LA Kings when LA was about to go up 2-0 in the series late in the 3rd period, and they found an infraction on it, called a penalty. The Canadiens scored on the power play, tied the game up. They win that game, and they go on to run the table against the Kings and win the Stanley Cup. And there's a whole lot of superstition and kind of well worth diving into the whole aura and craziness around the curse of Marty McSorley. But because of that very suspect action, it seems as though the Canadian teams have been cursed. They have not won since that. So that's, 31 years that we haven't had a Canadian team hoist Lord Stanley's Cup.
It's about to be 32.
Yeah, well, maybe. Florida's seeking their first ever championship. This is their 3rd appearance. Like we said, they made it last year, but they also made it in 1996, had a Cinderella run. I think they were swept by the Avalanche in 96 in that their coach, Paul Maurice, who is a character of characters, he's seeking his first ever championship as a head coach. The other coach on the Edmonton side, Chris Knobloch, no relation to Chuck, so I don't think he's got
So
the
he
yips
doesn't have
just
the
yet.
yips. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, thank you,
Damn.
boy. He took over as coach in November, this past November. This is his first season as a head coach at the NHL level, so he's obviously seeking his first Stanley Cup. And the dynamic duo of Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid on the Edmonton side, who we've talked about before, they may be the best two players in the playoffs, and definitely who's left. They're looking for their first Stanley Cup that will kind of be a big feather in their cap as far as their legacies go for their careers. But they're third and fourth. They're the third and fourth fastest players ever to reach 100 playoff points, behind only guys named Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky. So it's amazing how good they've been, but this is the first time we're going to see them on the grandest stage, right? They kind of fizzled out in playoffs past, and this year it just seemed like in that Star Series, this may be the hurdle to get over the hump, because normally what we would have seen in the past was the Stars kind of overpower them. You don't see the supporting cast step up, and the Oilers get eliminated in like 5 games. But to see them come out and win in 6 games, get to the finals, now we get to see them, like I said, on the grandest stage of all sports, and then especially in this sport, it is kind of cool. So I think maybe the biggest storyline is Ken McDavid, the best player in the world in this sport, right at this moment, can he win the Stanley Cup? Can he achieve the ultimate goal? That really the only thing that's eluded him. He's won everything else: scoring titles, MVPs, every skills challenge in the book of the All-Star weekend. Right, yes. He wins. Heck, they even had him design some of the events during the All-Star Skills Challenge this past year. So can McDavid get over that hurdle, finally claim his first Stanley Cup, and could this spur on a run? And on the flip side, you have Florida, who, for much of their existence as a team, have been garbage and trash. And it was, can a team even survive in Florida?
Jesus, man.
And is that an understatement? It's not. But these past couple years, they've flipped the narrative.
Not good.
They've been garbage. They've been bad. They had that run in '96, and then outside of that, I don't even know if they made the playoffs again until a few years ago.
Oh my god.
They've not been good, right? But they've gone to back-to-back Cup Finals now. So now there's an expectation. Now that all that history of, this is just the Arizona Coyotes, this is the Oakland A's of the sporting world, all of that history can be flushed down the toilet with a series win and a Stanley Cup run.
The early 2000s. Yeah, the early 2000s weren't good.
No.
22 and 38, 22 and 44, 24 and 36, 28 and 35.
Yeah,
then they got to about 500.
That was with Luongo. They got to about 500. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then once he was gone, they weren't that good. And then they've had this recent run of success the last 3-4 years where they've been a pretty good team. And, the standard bearer now in the Eastern Conference, you come out of that conference, which is a juggernaut, so much history in that conference, so many champions, so many teams. I mean, gosh, you got the Penguins don't even make the playoffs with, one of the greatest players ever in Crosby, and that's the conference you come out of twice, 2 years in a row. You're doing something right. They're built for this moment. Now, can they finish it? Can they add to and make this worth their while? Can they stop themselves from becoming the equivalent of the 1990s Cleveland Indians? Can they reach that level where they're now a champion?
God, don't you just feel like they're built for the postseason though? The way their roster's constructed.
Yes. Florida in 6. I'm just saying it right now. Florida in 6. I think McDavid will get his, but not this year.
I think they remind me of like a running football team. Like they built their team through the trenches, and they're big, they're physical, they're nasty, and they wear on you. And it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You're on the forecheck. They control time of possession.
Stuff that we've been talking about, like with Dallas, is pretty much the same as Florida, except Florida's better, right?
Yeah.
They're deep. Their defense is going to be true defenders. They're going to be able to do their best to limit Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, and Draisaitl, and their top lines are still going to be able to score, right? I mean, if Edmonton if I hope Edmonton learned a lesson in their last game against Dallas, because you're not going to win a game in the Stanley Cups with only 10 shots on net, right? That was the stat line in Game 6. Edmonton wins 2-1 with only 10 shots on goal, which is the fewest we've ever seen in the NHL playoffs. It's just not going to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at what Florida just did to New York with shots on net.
Yeah,
I mean, they use their offense to help them play defense, right? They forecheck, they get time in your zone, and then they wear on you. You can see it, their physicality, and just doing that over and over the course of a series. It felt like it wore on the Rangers.
Wow. And everyone's going to be so fresh now too, because we don't play till Saturday, so they get essentially a whole week off.
The thing is, can you be physical against McDavid, or is he too fast?
No, yeah, you do the same thing that we keep talking about. I keep talking about, especially you do what Dan Hurley did to Zach Edey. Edey's going to get his. I mean, look at McDavid's goal in Game 6 against Dallas. How do you stop that? He's in and out of three defenders like a whisper in the night.
Excuse me?
Like a whisper in the night.
Did you just violate us? My ears have been violated.
I mean, you do your best, but you also have to take into account, like, that's Connor McDavid. Like,
you can't let him get into those zones, because I mean, he set up Hyman for the second goal.
That's
like,
Hyman's
you guys,
bread and butter.
yeah, you just got to stick on him. But yeah, I know. I think I just love the way Florida's built. But however, the way they're built, chewing that time possession, doing all of that, it does keep the other team in the game somewhat. So, like, even though you look at the shots, you look at the time possession or time in the offensive zone, whatever, and then you look up and it's still a 1-goal game, and like anything can happen in a split second.
Could
America
you argue
loves American teams and comeback stories? Florida's our comeback story this year.
Could you argue that Florida's built to beat all the East teams the same way the Wolves were built to beat the Nuggets, but not beat the Mavericks? That maybe they're not built to beat Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins and Hyman and Bouchard and all that firepower. That maybe they, because like you said, boy, they keep it close. Well, what if Edmonton, because of their skill, doesn't have to put that many shots on net? They rip off 4 goals, and you can't come back from that because you don't have the offensive horses. Just to play devil's advocate,
right? So, I mean, how much better? I mean, you would tell me, Komlo, how much better offensively is Edmonton than the Rangers? A lot, or is it okay?
I mean, they're the best offensive team in this year.
Well, so that was going to be. I was going to answer your question with a question: is do we think Florida shut down the top 2 lines of New York, or do we think the top 2 lines of New York just sucked for 6 games?
I think a little column A, little column B, because
that's fair.
You know, the Rangers, those guys, it's happened before, right? It's kind of like deja vu all over again.
It's
right?
2014 all over again, buddy.
Well, heck, it was last year all over again, right? Mm-hmm. We saw Panarin not even register a point in their opening series last year. So I think it was kind of New York feeling the pressure of not being able to, like, can we get over the hump? Can we be the President's Trophy team that succeeds? And Florida felt no pressure because kind of the way they play, they're like, we don't have to worry about this. We stick to our game. We know we'll be successful. Looking at the series, I feel like if you were just break down matchups to matchups, Florida has almost every advantage except for the fact that they don't have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That's it. Like you would say, they're better in goal. They're better defensively. They're deeper. They're more physical, right? They forecheck better. They generate more time in the zone. They're more steady through the neutrals. Like you could say all these things, but at the end of the day, the Oilers have the 2 best players who are going to be out on the ice the whole time. The same way the Mavs had the 2 best players on the court at all times in Kyrie and Luka. And we saw how that played out. So, that's why I'm saying part of me wants to go and just say I picked the Oilers just for the fact that it seems like they shouldn't be picked. Right? All of it points to saying this should be the Panthers.
Well,
but this isn't a simulation. This is life.
Yeah, so you're right. It isn't a simulation, but like I think Florida's route, and this isn't to like discount them or make them seem like they're underdogs, because I've been in the since Washington got eliminated, I've been in the Florida camp for a while. I love the way they play. I love watching them play. Everything about their game draws me in. But look at their route to get here, right? And look at obviously there's no bigger name than Draisaitl and McDavid, and there's no better combo than Draisaitl and McDavid. We've been saying that for weeks now, but look at the route that they've had to come through. You start off with like your local rival in Tampa Bay, then you have to go through Marchand, Pasta, and the
Swayman.
Bruins. Yeah, Swayman, he was hot. I mean, they've gone through some of the
They've
toughest
gone through
goalies.
arguably the three best,
Swayman, right? And now Shesty in New York. I mean, they find ways to score because they don't give a shit if it's a pretty goal, right? They just want the goal, and none of their goals are particularly that beautiful. But it's at the end of the day, like you see the score, not how it happened, right? I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup, but I do think Florida has the physicality and the mindset and the chip on their shoulder from last year to outlast and win.
You don't think
Florida
McDavid has a chip on his shoulder, carrying an entire country, carrying his legacy, because you never know if you're going to get back to one of these things.
Oh, 100%.
In a salary cap era too, where someone like him has to command the biggest contract we may ever see in the history of hockey, right? Is he thinking that this is desperate times call for desperate measures, or do you think it may be a little of more of the fact that the Panthers have been there before, they watched another team win, and they could sit there and say, we learned from that lesson last year?
So the difference there, and I'm not trying to minimize McDavid and the pressures that surround him being Connor McNasty. The difference is an entire Florida team is scorned. And you have an entire Florida team that's motivated to get back here and win. And in Edmonton, I'm not going to say that the rest of the team isn't motivated to win for their captain, but I mean, you kind of saw something similar with New York. How do you get a whole team up and going? How do you motivate a whole team to turn around and do your job and do it well enough to come out on top? Like, I think that when the going gets rough, I would much rather have money on Florida than Edmonton.
Who has home field advantage or home ice advantage in this series?
I think that gets decided in the moment. I don't think that's anything that they go into it with, is it?
Why would it not be whoever has a better record?
No, you're right. They have the whole schedule laid out, so it's Panthers have it. Panthers get the first two home games, so we'll be seeing a lot of rats on the ice.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if could that be the difference maker, because I feel like Edmonton played pretty good at home, right? That they had a size. It felt that way against the Stars, is that there was a sizable home ice advantage.
So something else to talk about in regards to this matchup, and you guys might have noticed this as well. The games are spaced out because this is the furthest possible travel. So it's not like we're going to see that like turn and burn 1 day, 2 days in between. Like they're going to get, I think, 3 days in between home and away games.
Is this the furthest possible matchup?
No, you got what?
Unless Vancouver was in it, but
Florida to Vancouver.
Out of the 4 teams that were in the conference finals, yes.
Yeah, you get a 4-day break between 2 and 3. Game 1, because it's in the same place. So game 1's on Saturday, game 2 Monday the 10th, and then game 3 is Thursday. And then you go Saturday.
The only thing I don't like about that is that we have to wait.
This takes 2 full weeks to get through.
That's standard. That's kind of what you got to do. It's the biggest moment of your sport. Let's run these guys ragged. They're already running on fumes. Yeah. Right? You gotta make sure your product.
No, I want to think about us as the viewer, as the jabronis, as the viewer. I don't
you want me to be a hockey player?
I am a hockey player.
A bruise from the leg is a hell of a long way from the heart.
I'll be the guy sitting on my couch drinking a beer, cursing like, I could have made that shot.
Yeah.
What a bum.
You stink, Messier. You stink. But no, I think it's an interesting series. I think there's a lot of different dynamics at play. I think
Make a
it's an
call. Who
interesting
wins?
matchup because of the fact that you could say they're contrasting styles. And I think that's what everyone loves. Oftentimes when it's the same style of play, it's whoever is just better and it just would overall win. But when you have different styles of play, you introduce different variables that we may not even be anticipating or that no one is looking for that just show up out of nowhere. I think X factor is going to be the defense of Edmonton. Can they
Yes.
limit the scoring chances and the time of possession that Florida has in the zone and allow the puck to get up into out of the zone to your playmakers? And in particular, one guy to look for is Darnell Nurse, the defenseman for the Oilers. I think he's a really good defenseman. He's, I would say, essentially their best defenseman who's out there. So he's going to be the guy tasked with guarding and shutting down their top line in Florida, like your Barkovs, your Reinhardts, your Verhaeghes, Kachucks, all the again, we make it sound like the Panthers don't have firepower. They've got some great scorers out there.
They've got some juice, bro.
I mean, again, that's why it feels like this all just points to Florida should win this, but that's why I'm going to take Edmonton, just because it sounds like they should, but life doesn't work that way. And I think the best play, when you have the best player and the two best players out there, that makes a big difference, especially when one of those players is the best player in the world. And I think that makes a massive, massive difference. So you kind of go with, at least that's what I'm going with, is even though he may be outmatched, when you have the best player out there at all times, you have an advantage regardless of what the other team is doing. So I'm going to go
Stevie,
with the Oilers.
who do you got?
I like Florida. I've loved watching Florida. Same thing with you, Komlo. I absolutely love their team, the way they're built, the way that roster's built, the attitude of Paul Maurice. Just when Rempe goes in there, they like guys are fighting. He's like, yeah, it doesn't change anything. Like no one got arrested, no one got put into jail. We're fine.
Mm-hmm.
We're just gonna keep going out there and doing our thing. I'm a big fan. I also think Kachuk's the perfect psycho for the postseason. Like that perfect combination of just like teetering on the edge of being too over the edge, but also in control and knows what he's doing. And I think their team is just feeding off of that, and I love it.
Nick,
So I'm going
so
Florida. Florida in 7.
7, okay.
Yeah, I
Nick,
think
I'm
this is
so
because of the
surprised.
travel.
I'm so surprised Nick didn't go with Bobrovsky. I thought for sure Nick would be firmly in Bobrovsky's camp.
You're a disgrace to the force, Bobrovsky. No, like I said, everything points to it. You want to. My logic says it should be this, but part of my heart goes, hey, you know what? This is the year that Canada gets a Stanley Cup back up to where they would say it belongs.
Do they ever, question for you, hockey people that watch during the season more?
Sure.
Do they play like how baseball does like interleague matchups?
Yeah,
do they go West Conference East?
Yeah.
Like, did Edmonton and Florida play each other this year?
I think you play everyone, right? There'd be really no reason to not play everyone. You have enough games. You got your
baseball
division.
has 162 games. They don't play everyone.
Yes, they do.
Do they?
Baseball plays everyone now. Yes.
Okay.
Every baseball team. You may not play everyone home and away, but the Yankees will play the Colorado Rockies at some point this year. That's going to happen. Whether it's in Colorado or New York, whether they do 2 series, they're going to play. So I would think in hockey they do that because I just got to get 1 game in. I got enough. Again, you play 82. It's a lot of games still. You got to knock out.
If Edmonton goes and plays Tampa and Florida and then goes back or something.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem like that's that crazy to logistics-wise to do. But
baseball didn't used to do that.
No, they didn't. I think this might be the first year that they guarantee.
Yeah, so you're jumping on me for saying that. Yeah, how much?
No, Jabroni.
Florida has not. They played Edmonton twice this season, and Florida routed them both times.
They in Florida?
Give me a second.
I would think if they played them twice, they did a home and home. One in, like you said, Edmonton comes down, does their Florida sweep. Florida goes up, does their Alberta sweep. They play Calgary and Edmonton, and then head somewhere else. It just seems to make sense. But yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it. I love the Stanley Cup Finals every year. It's the coolest trophy in all of sports. That you get your name etched on it. It grows every year because they're etching everyone's name on it. It's freaking awesome and really cool. To see the handshake line is always fantastic to see.
Yes.
You get the captain hoisting the trophy first. It is just such a cool, moment because it's like we accomplished this, such a team effort, such a team accomplishment together, and this is the culmination of all the work and everything that we put in, and because it's such a long journey too. I mean, this is, like you just said, 2 weeks for the cup. I mean, you're going to finish this in mid to end of June.
June
Think about how
21st.
the regular season didn't start like the end of October,
24th.
right? End of October, beginning of
24th,
November is when the regular season starts. It's such a long year. That's such a grind and such a physical sport too, right?
Yes.
So it is really cool to see. So looking forward to it. Again, I'm going to take the Oilers. I'm going to go Oilers in 6, so they win it on home ice.
Yes.
But anything else before we move on, Jabronis?
Panthers beat the Oilers in Florida back in November 5-3, and then they did it again in Edmonton right before Christmas, 5-1 in Edmonton. So
you said November though. Knobloch probably wasn't even their coach. Remember Edmonton started off the year like 1-11. They were horrendous. That's why they fired their coach and Knobloch took over.
How many times does that happen where you fire a coach mid-season and get to the Stanley Cup final?
The Blues did it with Craig Berube in 2019, and they won it. It's like the largest turnaround ever because it almost like at the halfway mark they fired their coach and Berube took over, and they I think were in last place in the Western Conference, and they were second to last, and they shot up the ladder, made the playoffs, and beat the Bruins in 7 games to win that final.
That's absolutely wild.
It doesn't happen very often. It is wild. So it's kind of, again, logic doesn't seem to be on the side of that. So I'm going to go with Edmonton. Anything else before we move on?
Nope.
All right. Next thing we're going to bring us to is going to be the French Open. It's the second tennis major of the season. It's the only one played on clay at Roland Garros in Paris, which, spoiler, this is where they're going to have, I believe, the Olympic tennis matches.
So is it going to be clay Olympic?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, which is kind of cool. I don't know if I've ever seen that. But a couple updates because we are now officially into the quarterfinals. So quarterfinals means final 8 for the men's and women's draw. So starting with the women's, 6 of the top 8 women made the quarterfinals. So not a lot of upsets, a lot of chalk, which is interesting. But the 2-time defending champ, number 1 in the world, Iga Świątek of Poland, she's back in the quarter. She kind of had a little interesting run because she had to play 4-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka in the second round. And their match was wild. Went to a third set. It was crazy. Świątek, I think, was down 5-2 in that third set and was able to come back and win 7-5. Ran off 5 games to oust Osaka. And that was just her second round matchup. But it seems like she's kind of getting her stride because her round of 16 matchup, she double bageled her opponent, meaning she won 6-0, 6-0. So didn't drop a game.
Is that an industry term? Double bagel?
Yeah.
Double bagel.
She's really good, but she'll take on the reigning Wimbledon champ, number 5 seed Marketa Vondrousova from the Czech Republic. Crafty lefty. Like your Jamie Moyers, your Rich Hills of the world, Vondrousova is the equivalent of that in the tennis world.
Is she 45?
No, but she I don't know how old she is.
Change-ups over there.
But no, she is though. She's just we'll take a weird crazy slice this way, slice it, slam you back this way, drop shot you that way, all crazy angles coming at you, which is why she's really effective on grass. So it's interesting that she's making a run here on clay. The last remaining American in any of the draws, men or women, is Coco Gauff. She's the number 3 seed. She's back into the quarters. She'll take on number 8, Ons Jabeur from Tunisia, or Tunisia, as we say in our country.
Hannibal.
Yes, same place. Not Hannibal Lecter, but the general, yes. Coco is also still alive in doubles, last time I checked. She's ranked number 5 in the world for doubles, and she's paired with Siniakova. And the last time I checked, they were trying to make the quarters of that. So it'd be pretty amazing. She's able to make the quarters in singles and doubles. She's just a phenomenal talent. I think she's still 20 years old, too, which is crazy. Already has a major. She won the U.S. Open last year. But she's fantastic. The other American who had made it this far was, or pretty far, was number 22, Emma Navarro from
UVA.
UVA, the 2021 singles champion in the NCAA. But Navarro, she beat fellow American Madison Keys, who's the number 15 seed, in 2 tiebreak sets. But then she just lost to Irina Sabalenka, the number 2 ranked player in the world and the Aussie Open champion from earlier this year. Lost in straight sets to her pretty easily. But she made it to the round of 16, her best result in a major, which is pretty amazing. And she's still pretty young as well. So she's someone to look out for down the road. On the men's side, Aussie Open champion for them was Yannick Sinner from Italy. He will play number 10 Grigor Dimitrov in the quarters. Dimitrov, kind of a cool story. He's fairly old tennis-wise, right? So like a lot of these men and women like Swiatek and Coco and Sinner and Alcaraz, they're all pretty darn young. But Dimitrov is playing his best tennis of his career, arguably, and he's like in his early to mid-30s. I think he might be 33. So it's kind of cool to see him make it to the quarters here. Number 3 is Carlos Alcaraz. He'll take on number 9, Stefanos Tsitsipas of Greece. He outed Matteo Arnaldi of Italy. Arnaldi had a pretty good run. He took out a couple higher seeds, including number 5, number 6, Andrei Rublev. So Arnaldi had a nice run to the 16. Earlier today's Monday, but earlier today, Novak Djokovic, the defending champion, he's looking for his 25th major title. He's the number 1 seed still, which is amazing because of how he's like almost 40. It's crazy, but he was able to escape number 23, Francisco Cerundolo from Argentina in 5 sets. He was down 2-1, came back to advance to the quarters. This is second 5-set match in a row. The previous one, he beat Lorenzo Musetti of Italy in 5 sets, and that match didn't end at like 3 a.m. So Djokovic is putting himself through the ringer, where some of these guys like a Sinner is really not had to struggle or work that hard. Djokovic is working pretty darn hard to defend his title. Number 11, Alex de Minaur of Australia. He upset the number 5 seed, Daniil Medvedev, I believe, and he made the quarters, and he plays Sasha Zverev, which I learned, Komlo, you might know this, that Sasha is a nickname for Alexander, right? Because Sasha Barkov is what they call him. The Alexander Zverev, Sasha Zverev is what I hear all the time. But Zverev's number 4 seed. Zverev won the Italian Open, I believe, the big clay court tune-up before Roland Garros. And then our last remaining man just lost today. Taylor Fritz, the number 12 seed, lost to number 7, Casper Ruud of Norway, which is interesting that you got a Norwegian tennis player this high up. But Ruud will advance to the quarters, and he'll be playing Djokovic. Thought kind of interesting stuff going on there. Interesting that we might have a back-to-back men's champion, and we might have a 3-time back-to-back-to-back champion in Swiatek and Djokovic. Kind of cool to see. But at this point, as Americans, I think all eyes turn to Coco as she, like I said, takes on Ons Jabeur, someone who's made several major finals and hasn't had her big breakthrough yet in winning a final, and Coco, who just had her big breakthrough in claiming her first major in the fall. So interesting to see how she approaches this, especially on such a drastically different surface than what you're playing on the hard court. But yeah, that was interesting.
There more prestige in doubles? I feel like every time someone talks about tennis or you see tennis, it's always singles. But like these major tournaments always go out of their way to have men's doubles and women's doubles.
Oh,
like, is
and they've mixed doubles too.
Is it just
I
not
think
prestigious or a big deal or what?
So Jordan, my wife Jordan, was a fantastic tennis player, state runner-up tennis player, and she, I think, was runner-up as a doubles player, and just talked about that before. And if you watch doubles, in a lot of ways, it's more exciting because the ball is moving so quicker. A lot of times rallies are shorter, but the ball, it's like the action is bigger too, whipping back and forth. And I think what she had said is it's because it's not viewed as difficult as playing singles, right? Because you have that other person there, you're only covering half a court. It's like the court is twice the size. It's only a little alley on each side bigger. So I think there's that idea that this isn't as difficult. And if you do look at people who play doubles, oftentimes their careers age-wise are a lot longer because you're not putting the pounding on your body, running all the miles back and forth. And it's kind of like in golf, right? You would look at an individual champion, like especially in live golf, you look at the individual champion of the tournament more than the team champion. because all of that is going to the one person versus spreading it amongst the team. So I think there's just that kind of idea that that's the biggest achievement is to do this on your own. You don't have a teammate with you. You were able to accomplish this just mano a mano and defeat them. It's just another one of the things that makes tennis great. I know this one they don't use Hawkeye, which is interesting. The Hawkeye technology that can call in and out immediately that you know. They still use the ball mark on the clay because they say, oh, we can see it. We don't trust it, which is really weird to me. Just use it. But one of the greatest things about tennis is that there's no argument. There cannot be well, this ref made a bad call. Oh, that guy fouled out. This guy should have played more. It's you versus the other person on the other side of the net, and you got the ball past them. The ball was in or out immediately. There's no question about it. You beat them, or they lost to you, or you lost to them. Whether there's nothing. There's no hiding. There's no excuses. Kind of like golf. There's no excuses. You shot the better score than I did, and you won. Right. So I think that's one of the best things about tennis. But that'll be wrapping up over this next weekend as we head into the quarters for all the sides, singles and doubles as well. Anything else, tennis people?
Another game for Milos!
Yes, thank you. No, Milos is not still alive in this competition for the second major. But always good to hear from. You gonna hit the Z balls with that racket? All right, moving on.
Newman has a brew line, right?
Yeah. He needs a $200 brew line to beat Ethel Kennedy. But yeah, so we'll move on from tennis, as I can see you're getting uncomfortable just thinking about how many of these people you have no idea who they are. But
no. There's a lot of people that you named that just went.
I know all of them. I like tennis.
Again,
like I said, it's so cool to me that it's a sport where it doesn't matter how big or tall you are, how fast you are, how strong you are. Did you beat the other person? Plain and simple. There's no other variables except for, did I get the ball past you? Did I force you? Did you make more mistakes? That's it. There's no, this call was made incorrectly, or they interpreted this wrong, or this challenge. And no.
Sports in purest form.
Yes, it really is. Competition in its purest form. The best person wins every time.
So that's right. A McEnroe.
You cannot be serious.
Well, he never had Hawkeye technology.
No, he probably would have been a lot better of a player if he had Hawkeye, because he wouldn't have been losing his damn mind every 3 seconds. And to be honest, I think it's helped Djokovic, because Djokovic was fairly temperamental of a player in recent years as he's kind of gotten older.
He's chilled out.
Y'all, very much so. He used to have crazy eyes out there the whole time. Like, this guy's about to lose it. I mean, remember he defaulted, got kicked out of the one, I think it was a U.S. Open.
When he hit the ball boy, right?
Yeah. It looked...
With the ball. I don't mean he went over and abused him.
Exactly. He just kind of flipped the ball and drilled the ball kid, and they were like, oh, you're disqualified.
But I'm spry.
Yeah, ball man.
There are no ball men. But yeah, no, I think part of that is it's just, again, it takes a variable that you don't have to worry about out of the equation. He knows the ball's in or out automatically, and there's nothing he has to do. But it's kind of funny, the match point he had earlier today against Cerundolo, he had to have the chair umpire come out and check the mark, because they don't use the Hawkeye here at the French Open for whatever reason. At the last point, he goes to hit his backhand to return it and just stops and goes, challenge, it's out. And she runs down and goes, yep, ball's out, game, set, match, Djokovic, which is kind of, interesting and ironic based off what we were talking about too. But we'll go ahead and move on. We're going to move on to golf, which I know you're much more comfortable talking about. And we're going to start with the U.S. Women's Open. So the U.S. Women's Open is the second major of the year, was being contended at Lancaster Country Club in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And boy, was this course difficult, which is what you want out of a U.S. Open, right? They always say The U.S. Open is supposed to be the toughest test in golf, regardless of if it's men or women. And you don't want to say you necessarily want to see them struggle, but in a lot of ways you like seeing that they're also human too, and that this game is difficult, and that they're prone to go out there and shoot 80, like we saw our girl Nelly Korda do in the first round. She shot an 80, which is unfathomable to think about from what she had been doing. But Yuka Saso from Japan, she won the Open. It's her second major ever. Right, her only 2 wins ever have been majors. She claimed the U.S. Open 3 years ago at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. So she's only the 3rd woman ever to have her first 2 victories be at majors. I think the other was, oh goodness, Inji Chun and Sari Park, I think were the other 2. But she won by 2 strokes after she shot a final round. Oh, she won by 3. Sorry, she won by 3 at -4. She shot a final round -2. And a day where everyone, again, the course was just so difficult, but the day before you saw some scoring. Right, going into the final round, there was a 3-way tie for the lead with Andrea Lee of the U.S., Minji Lee, who's your boy Minwoo Lee's sister, and the Michai from Thailand. They were all tied at -5. So you thought, okay, maybe we saw some scoring. We're going to see this course open up. No. And it showed its teeth real big that final day because Andrea Lee shot a +5. Minji shot, I think, a +8. Michai shot +7. So you saw all these people, I don't say fold, but blink. And Saso took the reins and won this tournament, which was kind of cool. Kind of cool to see. She was one of the
few people that was like under par for round 4, right?
Oh yeah, there were not a lot of red numbers.
No, I think like only 2 people in the whole tournament finished under par for all 4 rounds. That was that. At first, I thought like, oh, Nelly's just having an off day when I saw her like hit that septuple bogey, but then like I started watching like intently, and I was like, holy, this course was kicking some major ass. Yeah, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, maybe I'm not that far off.
Psych. Yeah, Kramer. Oh, 300 par. That's what the pros shoot.
If they're lucky.
Yeah. Yes, Nelly missed the cut at +10. Rose Zhang, she missed the cut, I think, at +11. Allison Corpuz, the reigning champion from last year at Pebble Beach, missed the cut, I think, at +12. There were so many big names. Lexi Thompson missed the cut. Brooke Henderson missed the cut. There were a lot of big names that missed the cut.
Your girl Coughlin missed the cut, too.
Lauren Coughlin from
UVA.
She missed the cut. So, yeah, you see some of the numbers that they put up, and you're like, yeah, this place has got to be really difficult. So just the fact that Saso can come out there and get under par and get a few strokes under par and shoot that -2 on the final day is pretty. She was dialed in. It was pretty awesome to see. Finishing in second was Hanako Shibuno, also from Japan at -1. Again, like you said, Komlo, the only 2 golfers to shoot under par the whole tournament.
Yeah, Shibuno was like +2, +3 on the day for round 2 or round 4, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Allie Ewing, the American, she shot a final round 66, good for -4. She was able to finish tied for 3rd with the aforementioned Andrea Lee at even par, which is pretty awesome for her. But yeah, final thing for you, Komlo, since you brought her up, your girl Charlie Hull, she shot a great final round of -3, which got her to finish at for a T19. Still at +6 though for the tournament. Yeah. So it's amazing. Like I said, that was an incredibly difficult course, and like you said, we saw some of the best players ever struggle mightily. So it's, like I said, an amazing achievement to see Saso win. And again, it still blows my mind. She's got 2 wins, and they're both at the U.S. Open. It's like Angel Cabrera type of stuff. Like, not that she's a bad player throughout the year, right? But to still, I could have 2 wins and they could be
in the darkest of times.
Yeah. Well, when the lights are the brightest, she steps her game up. It seems like. So it's thought that was kind of cool. Anything else from the U.S. Open?
I just think, and like I'm hoping that when the men get their shot at the U.S. Open here next week, 2 weeks from now.
The week 13, 14, 15, 16.
2 weeks. Yeah. So when the men's U.S. Open, I hope that we see a contest like this, man, because I always get stuck on that quote about U.S. Opens, about it. Like, what are you trying to do? Embarrass the best golfers? No, we're trying to identify the best golfers. Like, I love seeing low scores to par like this. I love seeing the pros struggle, and just like, like just seeing that it doesn't come easy to everyone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you said, Nick. Like, they're human. They're like us.
Yeah,
and I love that. Like, man, I felt so bad for Nelly watching her on that hole because, like, we've all been there.
Exactly.
Like, I think after her, like, third try to get back over that creek, she just kind of, like, folded and was like, like, took a second to, like, recenter herself. Very human moments. I guess that's what I'm rooting for.
The difference is that hasn't happened to her since she was like 8.
Yeah, well, the other difference too is if it were us, we would have picked the ball up and just walked it onto the green and put it there, or just gone to the next hole. And
it probably would have taken a big swig of something.
Give me double par. That's it. Give me a 6. Where's my beer? And moved on. Take my ball and leave now.
Breakfast ball.
Or we just turned and hacked one into the water and just walked off. Right. That's the bigger difference. Is that's what we would have done. But you're right, Komlo. We've all been there. I mean, it is also a sobering reminder that this is a tough game. It is a tough sport to do. You want to sit there and say, well, the ball's just sitting there. How can I not hit it? Right? But it is so otherworldly difficult to get that tiny golf ball into that tiny hole hundreds of yards away in 4 strokes.
And on a course like this that's like rearing its teeth, like, it keeps you hooked, not just because you're seeing these human moments, but because anything can happen. Yes. You know what I mean? Like you lock into that Sasso Shibuno matchup because you don't know if someone, like, it's totally possible.
Well, hell yeah! I mean, Ali Ewing, finishing at even had a shot, right? You knew that
plus
because
8, right?
Yeah, and then the tournament wasn't over till Sasso hit that chip on 18 to like 2 inches from the hole, which is a fantastic shot. It wasn't over till then because you could have totally seen. Again, with the way that course was set up, you've seen the ball just skipping away or some crazy thing happening, right? But until she put that right next to the hole, it was like, okay, she won. Mm-hmm. I think that's when her Wikipedia page officially updated, was when she hit that chip. You could have went on there and checked the 24 U.S. Open champ, which is kind of funny.
But good for golf, good for us.
Yes, yeah, it's good stuff. Anything else from the U.S. Women's Open?
No.
Nope.
All right, next we're going to talk about the Canadian Open, the RBC Canadian Open, happening in, you guessed it, Canada. This past week.
Was that Hamilton?
Was it in Hamilton, Ontario?
Yes.
Is that where it was this year? I think they move it around sometimes.
They do.
It's the National Open of Canada, so it's not like how like the WM is always at TPC Scottsdale, and the players is always at Sawgrass. They move the Canadian Open around.
It's not going to be getting moved around anymore.
Why?
It's we could have saved this for later, but now is more appropriate than ever. RBC is not renewing their partnership sponsorship with the PGA because this was the anniversary of the merger announcement, and they're tired of the back and forth and the shadow, and all reports are indicating that, like, you know what, we're just going to take a wait and see, and we'll renew our contract if we like what we see in the future. So RBC, which is a huge sponsor, they've been partners with the PGA for, I want to say, like, close to like 20 some years, maybe since 2008, but they've been partners with the PGA for a very, very long time. And now they're saying no. So we can add them to the list of Honda and Wells Fargo, among other, like, smaller sponsorships, but those are the big 3 ones that have backed away.
So are you telling me that there's some room for us to slip in there and sponsor our own tournament? Is that what you're saying?
Get, like, a lawn sign.
Sponsor this hole.
You see it like your charity opens.
Yep. This hole, the 8th hole, brought to you by What Caught My Eye.
But in the landscape of golf, I mean, it's a big deal because you see like these player board members like your Rorys, who back away because stuff isn't getting done, and now you're seeing sponsors walk away from the table. I mean, it's interesting to see how this is going to shift the landscape. So I'm curious to see like what we see the Canadian Open called.
Well, is it part of it? Let's put shit or get off the pot, right? Is that what it is?
That's
like,
pretty much
like. Look, if this had been done, yeah, we probably would stay because we know where we stand, but we don't want to have to guess where our money's going.
Exactly.
So make a decision, do something, or else we'll find somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It could be valid. Well,
money talks, man.
Yes, it does. Money isn't everything; it's the only thing, right? But back to the golf. Bob McIntyre from Scotland. He won his first career PGA Tour event. I think he had won twice over on the European Tour. The lefty claimed a one-shot victory over playing partner Ben Griffin. He was McIntyre shot a combined -16 for all 4 rounds. But what was kind of cool is that his dad was his caddy, and it's the first time his dad was ever caddying for him. So it's kind of interesting to see that. But the trivia question, and boy, you may know this: where did Bob McIntyre play college golf?
Where did he play college golf? Is this something like that has to? Go ahead.
Didn't Nathan tell us this? Because I thought he brought up Bob McIntyre. Wasn't it
Illinois?
No, it's hold on. Don't say it.
I bring it up because at some point earlier this year you were talking. Yes, McNeese
State.
Yes.
Oh my.
That's why I brought it because you were talking. You were like, Nick, where's McNeese State? And I was like, I'm in Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
The Cowboys, I think they are.
Yes, I believe they're. It's been a while since March Madness. McNeese State. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, it is Lake Charles, Louisiana. I knew that, but the Cowboys.
Yeah,
I don't know. I wanted to
Cowgirls,
say they were like
right?
Blue Raiders, but they're Cowboys.
They're
their
blue
mascot's blue. Yeah.
On a horse. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard that, and I was like, oh, the boy, since he was all over McNeese State, Bob McIntyre. That's where he went. I thought that was kind of wild. And interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Just so random. Well, former Masters champion Danny Willett from England. You know where he played college golf?
McNeese.
No, jabroni.
Oh, damn.
Jacksonville State, the Fighting Rich Rodriguez's. That's where Danny Willett played.
The Gamecocks?
Yes, the Gamecocks. That's where Danny Willett played.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I can see. I guess. I mean, there's smaller schools in the South that you don't hear about.
But it's just
besides
wild.
Like March Madness and maybe some baseball. But
you would think these guys, because I bring them up because they're both from the UK.
Yeah, where do you find that? How does that?
England, McIntyre from Scotland. That's my point. I was like, how the hell is this guy going to leave his country, come over and play at McNeese State and Jacksonville State? You would think that they'd be going to Bama, or some
opportunity, baby,
like Texas or Arizona State. Where
I just want to know, like, how do they find the college, or does the college find them? Because I feel like there's no way the college finds them, question. Right?
I don't know.
Like a semester abroad. He
did a semester abroad in middle of nowhere,
exchange.
Alabama.
Scottish exchange, and then you kind of start to look around, maybe play a few rounds of golf while you're here, and you get recognized.
I can't be.
History writes itself.
There's got to be something where it was like they're on the radar of these people because of some juniors that they do, and that
there has to be a connection somewhere. Some coach had some connection with Scotland that. It has to be something like that.
Right, because it just seems so improbable. Like, that's just too... Not to take anything from the fine people of McNeese State and the fine people of Jacksonville State, but it's not like this. Like I said, it's not like they're like Wake Forest, Texas, Arizona State, Oklahoma State. It's not like they're
Florida State, Oklahoma State. Yeah, it's
right where you see. I mean, again, those brands have had several European players. I mean, Hovland went to OK State. I think Christo Lamprecht, one of the top amateurs, he's like 6'7". He's from over in Europe. Might be Danish, but I think he went to Wake Forest or Georgia Tech, right? So he's gone to what you would think these bigger time schools. It's just mind blowing, right? That Bob McIntyre went to McNeese State. Like, how? But I think it's kind of cool.
That's wild.
He went to McNeese, but I don't think he graduated. He left 18 months into his scholarship and tweeted, "Some people in this world are pathetic. I am done. Full stop over here." It's been hard this semester. I'm leaving college to go home.
Well-
He had a fallout with the head coach Austin Burke,
Well,
and that's all the article says.
I will say, Bob this is his first year full time on the PGA Tour. He had been living in Scotland, doing everything over in Europe, and he was on the Ryder Cup team last year. Because how well he's been playing over there. And then this year was his first year that he came and moved over here and was living, I think, somewhere in Florida and was struggling. And I think he talked about how getting acclimated to the U.S. was a struggle for him. And, he hadn't had the results. And then we saw in that last major, this is why we kind of brought him up before, last major he did pretty well, a top 10, I believe. And they talked about maybe this is the turning point for Robert McIntyre is that he's now comfortable here. And I think, we just talked about his dad was his caddy for the first time. That's an extra layer of comfort. And I wonder if now he's going to put it together. And we're going to see McIntyre maybe contend at the U.S. Open here in a couple weeks, where his game was before he wasn't in a position to contend. So I thought that was a kind of a cool win for him, a cool storyline. And
sure.
Another lefty, which is always fun to see a lefty not named Phil win.
Well, the
Komlo.
RBC Canadian Open there had the most lefties because Canada has the most lefties
because of hockey.
In any country,
That's
Canada
so
has the
cool.
most lefty golfers because of hockey. Because they pick up a stick and play hockey left-handed, so they pick up a golf club left-handed.
Well, part of that too is most people would throw righty. So if I'm going to be a goaltender in hockey, I'm catching with my left hand, holding the stick with my right, but I put the glove down. I'm now a left-handed shot. So that's another reason for it. But it's also they go.
It's just
lefty.
it's just kind of like a wild stat. Of course, the announcer they were talking that was saying this, I forget what his name was, but he was giving that stat, and he goes, "Yeah," and then I played hockey right-handed and golf right-handed.
It wasn't Mike Weir. Weren't they talking to Mike Weir,
It
the
might have
great
been.
Canadian lefty?
That sounds right.
Was it Mike Weir? I don't know. Whoever was
I saw Mike
hockey
Weir
right-handed. Okay,
but
he played hockey right-handed. Probably
maybe.
because he's left-handed. Maybe, I don't know.
Did you guys see the one story that came out of the Canadian Open about CT Pan and his caddy?
Yes, his caddy
I thought that was so cool.
hurt.
And it got me thinking. It put me. I ran through a couple of would you rather scenarios in my head. Stevie, did you see this?
No, I did not see it.
So CT Pan's caddy took a tumble on the fourth hole and hurt himself and couldn't stay on the bag. So
is this when they pulled the guy from the stands?
So he walks off. He walks off. He just grabs a random fan. The fan carries the bag for a hole, and then he gets another fan to swap out with him.
No, it wasn't another fan. It was someone who was working at the event, who was a caddy at the club. Came and got it.
He grabs another person to work the bag for him till 9, and then an emergency caddy shows up and carried it for the back 9.
Well, the emergency caddy, I forget who he's a caddy for. He's a caddy for another golfer, but he lives in Hamilton, Ontario, and he saw it happen on TV, and he called someone there, and he's like, "Hey, I can be there in 10 minutes."
What?
To caddy
I'm on my way.
No, seriously, yeah. He was like, "Hey, I'm on my way. I'm coming. I'll caddy for him. I'm a legitimate, actual professional caddy." So he got there, and that's who finished the round for him was someone else's caddy who just happened to live in the same town the tournament was going on in. So I think it was
he was paired with Shane Lowry, and I guess someone asked Lowry about it afterwards, and in typical Irish fashion, he was like, 4 caddies? Well, that's got to be a fucking record.
That sounds about right. Whose leg do I have? Don't get a pint of Guinness around here.
Wouldn't that be so cool, though? Just to be a patron and, just, you, come here.
They had this dude on, CNN or, the news or, a morning show. I'm pretty sure I saw it today. He was on some show for
awesome.
it. But it's pretty sweet. Well,
it was concerning because his caddy was Fluff, wasn't it?
Yes.
The
Jim
old guy that
old caddy.
The guy with the sick mustache that goes to every waste management.
And he's kind of up there in age, late 70s. So that's part of why it was concerning.
It was Al Rydell, the regular caddy for Paul Bargen.
Yeah.
who
Baryon,
who carried the bag for the back nine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was such a cool storyline. Like, I would that it just makes me want to go to golf events and not like hope somebody gets hurt, but like,
well, didn't this happen in Tin?
I'm here. I'm
Tin
ready.
Cup, and this happened in Happy Gilmore, right? In Tin Cup, like Roy McAvoy knocks that 3-wood dead, and whatever Don Johnson's character fires him right there, and he has to pull some dude from the stands to caddy for him. And right in Happy Gilmore, shooter's like, "Hey, what club should I use? 5-iron.
You're fine.
Yeah, give me a wedge. 5-iron, huh? You're fired.
God, that caddy should have been fired, giving him a 5-iron in that situation.
Well, then I mean, it's also similar where he's like, "Oh, you guys haven't given me a caddy yet." No, on tour, you guys provide your own.
Lafferty Daniel and Gilmore happy.
Good luck, buddy.
Where were you on that one? Just make sure I don't look like a dumbass.
Yeah, pretty much. Anything else golf related before we move on?
Rory's still looking awesome. Rory's having a good year, dude.
Yeah, I mean he's always had a good year. He doesn't finish the majors or doesn't do. He's not in like full contention at the majors for the whole time. His last few top finishes in majors, I think, were because he had really good final rounds, but started the round like 20th, right? So he's always been. I mean, he's one of the best golfers ever. It's just when you look at it, he's only got 4 majors, and you would think someone who's been everyone else who's won the number of tournaments he's won has way more majors than he does.
There were a lot of people that took this tournament off too. Like big names, like Xander wasn't there. He took a second week. Victor is still like floundering around. Scotty, I mean, understandably so, took off. There were some big names that missed out on it.
It's a grind. There's a lot of tournaments, and I gotta leave the country. Maybe I'm gonna stay put. The U.S. Open's in a couple weeks. Maybe I'll play the tune-up, whatever it is, right before that, and then I'll go to Pinehurst. So it makes sense. Makes sense. But I wanted to move on to baseball because I know you love some stuff. Most of my stuff has to do with the Yankees, which, I mean, understandably so. They have the best record in all the majors coming into today. A half game better than the Phillies, and they get 42-19. The Yankees are. Phillies 41-19. But Aaron Judge is just mashing it, Snail. Like he's been fantastic. He leads the majors with 21 home runs. On Friday, he hit 2 against the Giants in San Francisco, like arguably the hardest ballpark to hit home runs in. It was just a cool stat. It was his 35th multi-homer game in his career, which is tied now for 4th all-time in Yankees history with Joe DiMaggio. And the only people ahead of him are Mickey Mantle, Lou Gehrig, and Babe Ruth. So it just shows how good Judge has been, really.
I mean, we've talked about him the last 3 weeks. We're not, I mean, usually we kind of pick someone else like yeah, I mean, you kind of pick someone else that you're seeing that has a hot streak. Usually hot streaks go 1 to 2 weeks. So he's been hot for an entire month, and it's been scorching. It's not even like fair what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, but again, what's cool too about the Yankees is that it's not just him. Soto has had so many multi-homer games. On Sunday, he had another 2-homer game to lead the sweep of the Giants. His second home run was a 2-run bomb in the 9th inning to have the go-ahead runs. Again, he hit the ball to the deepest part of the park too. Right, the two of them have a combined 38 home runs this year. They've been fantastic,
especially and they have that many. I said it's June 3rd, and they have that many home runs combined.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about dynamic duos? Good God.
Yeah, I mean they've been great. And what's amazing is they've needed it because they're only 3 games up on your Baltimore Orioles, Komlo, because the Orioles just are a machine in their farm system. We just talked about before the show Connor Norby, one of a hugely touted prospect, one of their a zillion that they have in their farm system, just got called up. I think a big reason for that was, I don't know if you saw how Jorge Mateo got hurt over the weekend, but Cedric Mullins was warming up in the on deck circle, And when he came back, boom, hit Mateo on the head, and Mateo had to come out of the game. So that's how Jorge was out, and that's what opened the door for Norby to come up, because your boy Jackson Holiday was who they would have had there, but he still doesn't necessarily seem like he's fully ready yet to come back up with those expectations. But
his confidence is shook right now.
But again, it just the Orioles farm system, it's crazy, just cranking out all these guys. They still have other people to call up, and it makes you wonder if they're going to make a move.
I'd have to think so, right? You're going to use that collateral to get you a reliever or get you another starter.
Or both. I would think they need both. If the ultimate goal is to win the World Series and not just, hey, we made the playoffs, this is nice, you need another starter.
Because you just lost Means for the season again.
Yes. And is Bradish hurt? I thought someone else got hurt. Yeah. So you need another 2 arms at least. You need another starter. You need another bullpen piece. So I wonder if I've always wondered this. Why do trades not happen like now? Like the Orioles know they need it now. Why are we going to sit here and wait till the last day in July when the trade deadline is to make this move when we can make the move now and trade?
Well, I think like if I had to like speculate, I'd imagine that like their different pieces are like flaring up at like such different rates. Like right now, I think Santander is starting to get hot again. Like he had 2 RBIs tonight in Toronto. I could see him being somebody that gets dealt. It sucks to say because I think from Jump Street that him replicating is going to be the key to their success. Stevie, you had him as your
RBI,
as your RBI leader for the league. I think that's a piece that they could look to deal. On the other side, like Colton Cowser, a guy who got hot out of nowhere, you could deal him, but Mullins.
Here's why I don't think they would deal Santander, because the other team is going to be asking for prospects.
Mm-hmm.
So Santander is 29. He's not a prospect. He's someone that plugs and play. He's someone that another team that's looking to add someone would go after and say, we need another big power bat in the middle of our order.
But that's if you're a seller, and the Orioles aren't sellers.
Correct.
Someone like a Norby is the prime example, right? There's so many other pieces.
Kierstead.
Kierstead's another one.
Is someone who is everyone's talking about.
Right, and those are the guys that you should be looking at. I mean, heck, maybe even like Chase Pavich down in the minors, a pitcher that they have who's another big time dude. Maybe him, because you need a MLB ready arm right now. Yeah. So they just have so much to choose from that. Yeah, they're not trading Santander. You need that. You need that other switch hitter too. I think that the impact of switch hitters is so underrated. When you have an effective switch hitter, it's huge. Like you saw those Yankees teams that succeeded in the late 90s, early 2000s, Bernie and Posada were huge, and they weren't the only switch hitters that they had, right? That would come through there. So I think that you can't underestimate that impact. So no way Santander gets dealt. I think he's too important.
Yeah, and I think Nick, you also said you wonder why these teams don't trade now and they wait. Well, because some of the other teams that are sellers they're not sellers yet, even though they should be. I
understand that, but they should be, right? The White Sox know they ain't going anywhere,
right? But who do you have on who's on their roster that's good enough right now?
I think is it Eric Fetty, the former Nat Eric Fetty? I think has come back on the White Sox and was doing really well. He played over in Korea or Japan for a year or two, and has been mowing people down.
I'd say you look at Mason Miller from Oakland. Too high of a price tag, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Like it's because with him, there's no way Oakland can't get a good enough haul for him, right? I mean, you would be doing that trade just because they're never
going to pay him, so they're just going to lose him.
You're trying to be major league, right? You're trying to lose so they can relocate.
Which is what they're trying to do, pretty much.
What happens to the runt of the litter? It dies.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think you could. Mason Miller doesn't seem like a candidate to me because he's too young. Like you're looking more, older pieces. But again, if you could get Mason Miller, I mean, God, that you would say you got to give up these guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
For the Orioles, it seems like an easy move because now you're set.
Yeah, because
but again,
we
that price for him's
love...
got to be so high because the demand is like even if the A's are that incompetent, you still know the demand is that high that you're going to try to fleece these teams.
Well, one of my pet peeves with this is that we fall in love with potential so much instead of getting people that are MLB players and MLB ready.
Yes. How many prospects do you need?
Right.
How many times do you need to learn that lesson?
I mean, if you're the Orioles, you say this is now, right? We have this window now to go win. You have your core. Those prospects, there's no room for those prospects.
Yeah.
Go get yourself a starter, a reliever, and go try to win a World Series or two.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. When you go back and you analyze trades throughout history, it's really rare that the team that got the prospects wins the trade, just because it's an unknown commodity. But
baseball is one of the most difficult sports to make it. Right? How many of these top prospects sometimes don't even make it? Billy Beane was a top prospect. Your Moneyball guy. He didn't come close to doing anything.
It's because again, this is something I've talked about, that we've talked about, like the gap between the minors and the show is so big.
Yes.
It's so big, man. Like and again, to quote Moneyball, you don't know. You don't know. You sit there across that table, you tell them you know and you don't.
Yeah, it is. It's just you hate that movie?
No, I love that movie.
Oh,
I'm not. It's a good movie, but I'm not a fan of it.
The Cy Young winners.
Is that what they don't? Barry Zito
and Hudson aren't in the movie.
Mark Mulder.
Oh, the three most important guys.
Yeah, but I think it's because they have them as prospects. Like they didn't moneyball them. That's the point. They didn't moneyball them. They just had drafted them and they came up through their system. Whereas Moneyball is about all the pieces, losing Damon and Giambi, and how do I
and Carlos Pena,
and how do you trade Carlos Pena? Like how do we, getting rid of the other Giambi? Like all those storylines as part of the Moneyball, or teaching Scott Hatterberg how to play first base. Right, that's all. That's all part of it. But that's why. Yes.
What's up, boys?
Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.
For those of you watching at home, we have just been graced by our special guest of the night, the great Doug Howard. So we were just wrapping up our baseball talk. We gave a lot of love to your O's because we knew you would enjoy that. And
another big win tonight.
Hell
really?
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah.
They blew out the Jays 7-2.
Man,
that's right.
They're doing well, but Doug is here as our resident basketball expert. Right, your official title is VP of Evolution Basketball Training. Is that correct, Doug?
That is correct.
Yes. So Doug is our resident basketball expert, and we asked him to come on to help break down and take a deeper dive into the NBA Finals. This is what we've been saving it for. We told you at the beginning of the show we had a special guest, and Doug is our special guest. We're really excited for him to be here. If you wanted more baseball, we'll have some baseball in our bonus catches for this week. So check out that stuff on our socials and our website. But Doug is here to join us for the NBA Finals. If you've been under a rock, the finals are going to be the Boston Celtics, who had the best record in the NBA, taking on the Mavericks, who were the 5 seed but have made this pretty good run because they've at all times have had the 2 best players on the court. So, Doug, what's the biggest thing you're looking for in this finals?
I think it has to be the matchups. I mean, on paper, the Celtics match up with the Mavericks on the perimeter as well as any other team in the league. And I think what the interesting part about this is how Jason Kidd gets the advantage attacking the Celtics big. You know, the Mavs are big on pick and rolls to let Luka work, get the guard on his hip, and now make a play at either with the basket, the shot, middle of the lane, or to have that lob threat with Gafford or Likely. Not many people can stay in front of Luka and can compete with his size, his length. Celtics have 2 guys that can compete with his length, with Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And then Kyrie, a lot of guys can't keep in front with him, but on the Celtics, you have an amazing on-ball defender in Drew Holiday. So in terms of the perimeter, on paper, the Celtics look like a great team and have the advantage defensively that many teams struggle with so far in the playoffs. Um, on the flip side, the Mavs have a great uh, attack with the bigs. Horford is 38.
The
So
age
if
is
if you get him ISO on Luka or Kyrie because of a screen and roll and there's a switch happening, advantage Mavs. Same thing with a big in Porzingis, who's usually a great rim threat, but we haven't seen him play, since the regular season. How healthy is that calf? The calf is going to have to be, the calf, when you stop and start, that puts a lot of stress on that calf. Um, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see, one, how Jason Kidd gets the primary defenders off the ball on the matchups on the perimeter, and how they can attack the bigs. If the Celtics, if the Mavs can't get the primary defenders off the ball, it's gonna be hard for them to score. And I think I think that's where the genius and the matchups and how Jason Kidd throughout this series finds a way to do that. I think is going to be the difference maker.
How big of an impact is Porzingis' presence out there? Because we have talked at length the previous weeks. I said it before the playoffs started that the Celtics can't win the championship without him out there. Kind of like what you're talking about, the matchups when you have to match up against some of the elite teams and their bigs, you need him out there because, like you said, Al Horford is a liability defensively. Luke
Yep.
Cornett, who's done a great job filling in, is not Porzingis. He's kind of your big body down there, your goon, if you will. So how big of an impact is Porzingis' availability for this series?
If he's healthy, it'll be huge. I think that's kind of the mystery surrounding this series is what Porzingis are we getting? Are we getting the explosive rim protector that alters shots, that can move, that can stay in front with his athleticism? Or are we getting a hobbled Porzingis who can't push off one leg? Um, so it's going to come down. I mean, and we'll see game one how he moves. And I think it goes back to, and in the same breath, Luka is only getting healthier. I don't know if you guys saw him move in that last game. People forget he's been hobbling around. He had not looked himself throughout the playoffs, and every game throughout that series, he was moving better. He was getting more lift on his jump shots. He was feeling when you're playing on one leg, you don't feel comfortable rising up into your mid range and being that explosive. And you really saw it come back that last game, especially, which I think he felt that way and knew that's why he came off the gates looking to score finally, because he trusted, that injured knee. So going back to the Porzingis question, I think we'll just have to find out if he's healthy. I don't see how the Celtics don't win. If he's 50%, 70%, I think the Mavs have a chance because they're going to be attacking those bigs all day with Horford and hobbled Porzingis. We'll see.
Yeah. So who or what do you think is the biggest X factor in this? Like maybe underrated, something that we may not be looking for, maybe a bench player, or maybe just a overall type of matchup. What's the biggest X factor?
Yeah, I think it's got to come down to the Mavs. I think if I'm the Celtics, I'm not letting Luka um, have one-on-one matchups. I'm not letting him get easy one-on-one plays. Take the ball out of his hands. If that's a blitz, if that's a double, if that's an ice, and keep him corralled. Make him give it up early. Let the Mavs other players beat you. The Timberwolves, for some reason, were trying to let Luka work instead of just saying, hey, PJ Washington, if you go 17 for 24, so be it. We'll live with that. And for some reason, they let Luka and Kyrie get the touches and shots they want. So I think the X factor is going to be those two wings for the Mavs, because I do think the Celtics are going to force the ball out of Luka's hand early, and it's going to come down to if PJ Washington can make the shots like he did against the Clippers. If you remember against OKC, Minnesota, he did not shoot that well. And I think if he can get that stroke back from the earlier two rounds, I think that's going to be the difference maker. The Celtics, we know we're going to get out of Tatum. We know we're going to get out of Jaylen Brown. Drew Holiday is going to be consistent. White is consistent. They got four consistent guys we know we're going to get. Mavs have two. Can those other two guys be consistent scoring the ball and shooting the ball? I think is going to be a big X factor for the series.
Do you think there's anything coaching wise between Jason Kidd and your boy Joe Mazzulla
I can't hear you guys. 1 second here. We got some malfunction here.
Technical difficulties.
Uh-oh.
All right, there we go. We're good.
We'll edit it in post.
We're good.
We'll edit it in post. But do you think there's any advantage or disadvantage between the coaches? You got Jason Kidd, who we've all known about for forever, against Joe Mazzulla, who's pretty young and he's from where?
West by God, Virginia.
West by God, Virginia. Do you think there's anything in that matchup, or do you think this is more of the players going to decide things?
I think I would give a slight edge to Kidd in the X and O's. I think what he's done throughout the playoffs, throughout series, has been magnificent. He really got all the ball screens. If you watch the Mavs, middle of the floor. There's no side ball screens. Why? Because in the middle of the floor, it's a lot harder to double. You double in the middle of the floor, you're almost going to give up an open shot every time. A lot of teams, they throw it to the wing, they bring a ball screen up. You can double that because you got the sideline right behind you. You have a sixth defender right beside you. It's a lot harder to get a great shot from that. I mean, he does a lot of good things throughout the series. He did a few things when Luka was hurt where he would take him out, right, call a timeout. That next possession, they're on defense. The next dead ball is immediate timeout. So Luka gets 15 minutes of real life rest with only one possession that he misses during the game. And watch out for how he utilizes that. He's been doing that very smart because he knows when that media is coming. And he makes that timeout before that media, so he gets almost a 15, 20-minute rest with losing only one or two possessions. So I love what he's been doing. Mazzulla's been there. They made it to the playoffs. Far in the playoffs last year, so he has that experience. Kidd, they didn't make the playoffs last year, so you had the experience going his way. You had the same team that he's had, except for for a while now. So, but I still give the X and O's an in-game matchup advantage to Kidd. It's gonna always comes down to the players, but that does help the Mavs offset maybe the liability that the supporting cast the Mavs might have.
Yep, I like that. Now, do you think we're going to see anyone pick up full court? Because, people will ask, well, how come you don't see them press in the pros? And I'm always like, because the guys are too damn good. And because of, the spacing that these guys are able to create, that once you get past one dude, it's, you're going to give up an open three somewhere. But do you think maybe the Celtics might try to have a Drew Holiday pick Luka up full court, just trying to disrupt that timing and eat up clock and maybe kind of make him work harder? Because Luka's actually been playing great defense, surprisingly. So if we make him work so hard on offense, will we even get him on defense? Like maybe this throws him out of his rhythm. Do you think we'll see someone pick up full court and kind of escalate that pressure?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Nick. I think it should be done more in terms of just picking up full court because the shot clock is already a small amount. So your teams can get into the offense later in the shot clock if you pick them up full court. So now they only have maybe one action to get to, as opposed to if one action doesn't work, get to a second or third. So I think most teams should do it to just eat up that shot clock. And now you're only guarding one action in the half court. And then their second point, I think they definitely, if Luka brings the ball up, why not have someone pick him up full court? Now, the problem on the flip side is that if that's Tatum picking him up full court, now Tatum's supposed to score 30 points a game. So now he's getting fatigued. It's not just fatigue for the guy dribbling. If it's the guy guarding, it's also fatigue. So that's why some teams are afraid of it because they'll fatigue their own star player if it's that guy. We saw a lot of teams do that against Brunson because the guy guarding him was a TJ McConnell, who's not going to play 40 minutes a game. He's going to play 20 minutes a game. He's not counted on to score, 25 to 30 points a game. So I think maybe in spurts it might be a good idea, but if it's Luka bringing the ball up and you have Tatum on that matchup or Brown on that matchup, you don't want to do it all game because they need those legs to score.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone on that bench that would be like that TJ McConnell to do that?
So the guys that would have the legs to do it, I mean, a guy like Pritchard will have the legs, but you're going to have to get him off the ball as soon as you can, as soon as they cross the half, which might make some hard adjustments. One guy you could think about is White, who's your third, fourth scorer for the Celtics, right? So you're not counting him to be, but White doesn't have the poundage, the mass to hold up against Luka in the half court. So maybe in a couple possessions, see if they can get away with it a few times. But I don't see anyone like that on the bench that can do it all game long. Yeah.
Yeah. Last question, Doug. What is your prediction for the final? Who wins? How many games? Who do we see win MVP? Like, who do we see step up and star, and who takes home the Larry O'Brien Trophy?
So I think the Celtics on paper have the better roster. They have the better matchups going forward here. The Mavs have to win one of the first two games. If they don't win one of the first two games, when Porzingis is the most rusty, probably not as recovered, right? He's only going to get more healthy, right? So I think Dallas has to steal one of these first two games to win a series. If you see a Celtics 2-0 lead after the first two, I think it's a wrap. I don't, because Porzingis is only going to get shake off that rust as the series goes on. So I think for the Mavs to win, they have to get the first two. I think Celtics in 6 or 7 is a great bet. But then again, you never bet out Luka and Kyrie. We've seen that in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavs won this series. But if I had to put money on someone, it would have to be the Celtics.
I like it. Boy, who you taking?
I'm going with Joe Mazzulla just to root for them. So I'm taking the Celtics in 5. I think it's either gonna be Mavs in like 7 or Celtics in 5. Like Celtics can end this thing quick. Yeah.
Komlo.
I'm gonna take the Celtics. I think they have the deeper squad, and like in the conference finals, you saw more points come out of more players on the Celtics than you did in the Mavs. Like the Mavs, it was Luka and Kyrie putting up 36, 37, and everyone else having 8, 9 points. I like the Celtics in 6.
I'm going to take the Mavs. I'm going to go Mavs.
There it is.
Mavs in 6.
Yeah, there it is.
That's it to it. Yeah, but did it with hockey. He's doing it with basketball.
Because remember my justification for hockey of taking McDavid and Draisaitl was that you at all times have the two best players on the ice. I think the Mavs, with the way Kyrie and Luka have been playing, at any time you have them on the court, you have the two best players on the court. And so, as you've talked about before, you can play the best defense in the world in basketball, and it doesn't matter if you execute perfectly on the offensive end, you can still score.
Yeah, right? It's the only sport. It's the only sport like that.
Yeah. So for that reason, I'm going to take Luka and Kyrie to get it done, to keep this kind of Cinderella-like run, because I didn't expect this. I didn't see it coming. So I'm going to take them.
To your point, just to hop in, I mean, do you guys know the Celtics' home playoff record the last few years?
Is it not good?
It's 500 or just above it by one game.
Yes, yeah, I haven't watched the NBA.
Their home playoff game weirdly has been not great.
Too much. Do you think they feel too much pressure?
Did you just lead us
I have no idea, and so that's why the Mavs, with Porzingis being not played in a couple months, and also not being, if Mavs can steal the first 1 or 2 games here early, I think Nick's bet could have a chance. The last thing is Jason Tatum. Do you guys know his 3-point field goal percentage in the playoffs? What would you guess?
30%?
26?
32.
Yeah, 20, not just under 30%.
So he's due.
No, if he sometimes he settles way too much.
Yeah.
And if he sees Luka do his step backs and wants to go tit for tat with his step back threes, it's not the way he should be playing. And he settles too much with those threes. So we'll see how, if he attacks the rim a little bit more this series.
Do you think if that happens, though, that Jaylen Brown might assert himself, go get the ball, and say, this ain't happening? Because Jaylen Brown has looked to me the most assertive out there, the best at attacking the rim for them. Like, he doesn't settle as much as Tatum does.
That's a good point.
Do you think if he sees that, he might just go get the ball?
Yeah, I mean he should if that happens. Will he? We'll see. It's 1A, 1B. Will Tatum, let that go? It seems like they have a good relationship to be able to do that. I mean, if you really watched Jaylen Brown's been their best player
Mhm.
in these playoffs. It's normally been Tatum. So we'll see if there's a power struggle there or not. I don't imagine there would be. They've been through this enough times, so we'll see. That's a great point.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. Looking forward to it. For those of you listening, the series starts Thursday, I believe. Game 1 in Boston. Your boy Donnie Wahlberg probably will be there, screaming from the front row. Maybe he'll be doing his New Kids on the Block dance. But that's at least some. Everyone's got to have their celebrity
Hey,
fan.
how many Boston fans, when Luka complains about every foul, are you going to hear, "Shut the fuck up"? There's going to be about 1 billion of them.
Yes.
A lot of commercial breaks.
A lot of middle fingers from the stands that they'll have to cut. Go
I
to
can't
camera
wait.
6.
That's going to be a side plot.
Oh, is that some action you
Over
can bet
under.
on, Komlo? How many middle fingers that you see in Boston?
Someone's
I'll check
got
and
it.
get back
Someone's
to
got to
you.
have to. Someone has that. Some offshore account.
Yes, I love
I'll
it.
check with my bookie.
All right, we're going to keep Doug here because we asked him to stay because after our preview, we're going to get to our favorite section. And we asked Doug to stay to do our favorites because this week for our favorites, we're going over our favorite point guards of all time. And Doug was a point guard, so we thought this was apropos to have him be around and talk about.
Good word.
Oh, thank you. Is that our word for the day? Apropos.
Yeah.
Talk about our favorite point guards. For those of you who are new to our favorite section or our segment, we just talk about who were our favorites to watch or continue to watch. Not necessarily who we think are the best, like not our top 5 point guards of all time, not like the top 5 scorers of all time, nothing like that. Who were our favorites to watch, right? It doesn't matter any level, because as fans, that's why we tuned in. It wasn't necessarily because we wanted always seeing the best. It's who we enjoyed seeing. So again, like I said, this week, in honor of Doug being with us, we went for our favorite point guards. So because Doug is our guest, we'll give him the honor to start. If you want it, Doug, you can always pass this off to someone else.
Yeah. So favorite, not best.
Yes.
Number 1, Steve Nash.
Love it.
He was the guy that I idolized. I grew up playing, mimicked my game after him. Unbelievable vision. Should have shot more, honestly. He was a 40% three-point shooter. Probably should have shot more. Just made unbelievable plays. So he's definitely number 1. I'm going to just stick to guys that I watched during my lifetime, and not older guys. So I'll go 2 will be Jason Kidd. New Jersey Nets, Jason Kidd. I mean,
Heck yeah.
unbelievable. A cover of NBA Live 2000, best NBA Live game ever made.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
Rebounds, assists, dish. I mean, he made unbelievable plays. A lot of younger guys only remember him as the old Dallas Maverick point guard. But man, Jason Kidd on the Nets was a beast. 3. Now, I don't know if you guys consider him a point guard or shooting guard, and this is a debate for most people. Allen Iverson. Is he a point guard or shooting guard?
He's a point guard.
Okay, then we got to go with the answer.
That's a good one.
The way that he
Great nickname.
took guys off the bounce, had that little shit to his game, would talk about it, would tell you about it once he did the move. Usually I like my pass first point guards, but that dude was unbelievable with his size. And as a smaller point guard myself, it was fun seeing him even attack the rims too. Talk about an elite finisher at the rim. 4, I'm gonna go with. We're gonna go with Jason Williams, White Chocolate,
Yes.
my guy.
Yes.
I remember as a kid just trying passes he would make. He would do one where he would put it down, spin, and hit it with his elbow as he kind of turned the other way. I mean, I would go in the backyard and literally try that for 10 minutes. He made passing cool, right? He made passing not just smart, heady, or the right play. He made it look flashy and cool, and you wanted to get that the assist look better than the score kind of thing. And then 5, I got to stay loyal, man. I'm a loyal guy through and through. It hurts me at times, but I'm gonna go with my man, Agent Zero, Gilbert Arenas. Throw something up for my man Gil. What people don't understand, unless you were in it, that dude for 2 years straight was top 5 in the league in points, rebounds, and steals.
Oh
Oh,
no.
yes.
Like people have no idea. He was top 3 in 3 categories and top 15 in 4 categories as a guard for a couple years there.
Arenas.
He had a shot where he just threw it up, looked back to the rest of the crowd, and didn't even see it before it go in a playoff game. I mean, you gotta love a guy. He loved the fans. On Halloween, I went with a friend, and he gave out $20 bills at his house. I mean, this dude was DC through and
Really?
through, man. Yep.
That's
So,
sick.
and everyone remembers the gun incident. He had a little screw loose, but before that, people forget there was
A
a
little.
3. He had a stretch.
shooter in more ways than one.
You're
Hey,
sick.
he had a stretch where he was a top 5 guard in the league.
Yeah.
And people forget about that because of all the gun stuff. Go back and watch. I call it the original Big
because
Three.
of the
But
crime, Doug? Because of the crime?
he didn't shoot anyone. He just wanted to show his teammates.
Allegedly.
He had some guns.
It's all allegedly. He was never charged, I don't think.
Hey, man.
Allegedly.
No. He lost a bet in cards on an air flight,
Yes.
and he was gonna just show him that he was strapping. Whatever. What's wrong with that?
Announced
So-
my presence with authority.
Recap, baby. Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Allen Iverson, White Chocolate, Jason Williams, and Gilbert Arenas. Got it.
Oh,
There it
I
is.
love it. Now we have to follow you, Doug. This is
That's gonna be tough.
impossible. Who wants to go next?
I'll
Not
I'll
it.
Komlo.
go. I'll go. I don't take pride in following Doug, but just with the great Doug, my list is gonna get torn to shreds. That was perfect. All right. I kind of kept with the same theme as Doug. Guys that I've watched, not guys that have like the reputation that we grew up knowing and like continue to debate like the Mount Everest or the Mount Rushmore of point guards, right? It's guys that I watch, guys that I enjoy. So number 1, or I'll go 5 to 1. 5, Jason Kidd, New Jersey Nets, Jason Kidd, obviously. Love him. He was obviously a huge favorite in the games. I had a N64 NBA game, and it was like 2v2 with the big heads because that's all the fat cartridges for N64 could process.
That NBA
And
Jams.
It wasn't NBA Jams. I think it was like NBA Showdown or something like that.
A knockoff.
It was wild. Yeah, Kevin and I had all the cheats memorized. It was great. Number 4, I got Mr. Big Shot. I got Chauncey Billups on my list, just simply because this guy stole a championship in a Shaquille and Kobe era. Like it was arguably the most underdog championship win ever, right? Like statistically improbable championship win ever, and Mr. Big Shot comes through clutch. So I got Mr. Big Shot in the 4-hole. Number 3, I got Russell Westbrook. The numbers that this guy puts up, I mean, how many times in the past couple of years have we heard Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double on the season? I mean, the guy's game is just so well-rounded and awesome.
How many turnovers per game did he average? That's the quadruple double there.
I didn't know this list was the dumbest point guards ever.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Hey, you know what? I prefaced it by saying my list is going to get torn to shreds. Lock it in. Where am I? Number 2.
You're lost.
2,
This is where you are.
2. I got Steph Curry. There's no reason why Steph shouldn't be on a list of favorites. I mean, a guy like me watching Steph play, like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna start shooting the ball. I mean, Steph makes everybody. I think Steph, what he's done for the game, I think is huge, and I love his game. I just love watching him. I think he's hard to guard. I think he has a spectacular stroke. Steph Curry in the 2-hole. Number 1, Doug. I'm in the same camp as you, Steve Nash. The guy was unbelievable. Steve Nash was awesome. I liked seeing him in the purple and gold. But I mean, pick any point in Steve Nash's career, and that's the Steve Nash I like.
And who's the last point guard to win MVP?
Is it?
Is he the last one?
Well, does James Harden count as a point guard?
I wouldn't count him as a point guard.
And that's where it
Ball's
gets
gonna
tough. Like
stand
it's
the whole
you
time,
know
though, right?
who starts the offense for Golden State?
Yeah, it's
It's all-
Draymond, right?
Right. So that's why it's a great pick. He is a point guard. You always forget about it because he's so off the ball sometimes. I always think of him as like a two guard, but it's
Yeah,
he is a point guard. So that's a good pick, Komlo.
I would consider
Steph,
Harden a point
Nash,
guard. I
and
don't know why.
Rose.
I mean, he played with Chris Paul, so I wouldn't consider James Harden a point guard.
well, we've also
Um,
kind of gotten into positionless basketball at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, and when he's on the Sixers, Maxey was the point guard in my mind.
What
I
about
still
Derrick
think
Rose? Was he count as a true
he's a point guard. Yep.
And he won MVP,
Yes.
right? Before he blew
He
his
has,
knees
yeah,
to
he
shreds?
has
Yep.
one.
That's a
Russell
good one.
Westbrook has one. Steve
Does he really?
Nash has two. Curry
Yeah,
has
Russell
two.
Westbrook got it with that averaging triple double.
Yeah. And was it a quadruple double? How?
big dumb idiot.
I didn't say he put up stats.
Him and Trae Young, for me, are in the same boat. That's
All right. Anyways, yeah.
boy.
Brothers Vesey.
Sure, I'll go. I have an honorable mention this week. I've got Javon Carter as my honorable mention
I like
from
this.
West by God. He's absolute defensive bulldog.
Solid pick.
I don't know if you know the story about Huggins recruiting him. That he basically had like no high recruits. He wasn't a high like 4-star recruit or anything like that. But Huggins saw him at an AAU game pick up 94 feet. He said, I want that guy. I need him on my team. So he's still in the association, I believe. So love me some Javon Carter. And then number 5, I also have Randy Moss's former high school teammate Jason Williams, White Chocolate. Like Doug was saying, just watching him play was electric. The passes he would make out of nowhere to C Webb, I mean, it was just so much fun to watch. Number 4, Kemba Walker, especially the move he made on Pitt with that crossover step back to win the Big East championship. I think that move, I tried that move so many times right after that in the cul-de-sac, just trying to figure out what he did. And I think almost everybody that played basketball tried that.
Did you solve it? Did you get it down?
Well,
No.
as much as my athleticism could handle.
It was a spitting image, Komlo. He was
the
a spitting
exact
image.
same when I was 12 years old or whatever it was.
Pulling up lame. Oh, the hammy. It caught again.
Sorry.
Yeah, the hammy will catch it. It'll get you. Number 3, this is for you, Nick. One of my favorite college basketball players ever, Ty Jerome. The redemption tour for UVA, winning that national championship. He's the one that made that team go. His toughness, his finish, everything he did for that team. I remember, I think the game against Texas Tech, he had a crossover into the lane, high underhand floater, high off the backboard, goes in. And I think Reggie was like, "What was that?" And it was like, "No, watch him. That's what he does." From New York, I believe, from Pelham, right? Iona Prep.
Iona Prep is where he went. Yeah.
Number 2, Steve Nash. I think all of us will probably have Steve Nash. I had Amari Stoudemire on my favorite bigs, and you can't have Steve Nash without that. I mean, he was our Stockton Malone right there.
Nice.
Number 1, the man that has a statue outside of West Virginia Coliseum and is the logo of the NBA, Jerry West.
Very well. Probably could
Yeah.
have called that.
You went to all those games, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell us what it was like watching Jerry West just card people up.
He was unstoppable. Unbelievable. The crossover, the dribble, the drive, the shoot. Oh, my gosh. Jerry West. He can do it all.
Got kicked out of all those games.
Yeah, see? He can do it all.
Oh, all right, boy. I love it.
I'll hang up
All
and
right,
listen.
I'll hang up and listen. Thank you. I'm going to start off. I have an honorable mention just because I'm surprised you guys brought him up, but Muggsy Bogues, just because of how crazy it was that he, defied the odds of being as short he was. And,
Do you have Nate Robinson, too?
And Earl Boynton.
And Earl
Or-
Boykins.
Boykins.
Hey, Doug, Earl Boykins was on my larger list. I almost threw him in there. I wrote him. He was one of the first ones I wrote down was Earl Boykins.
Doug, his lists are 20 deep.
I trim it down
He
for
does,
the
he's
show.
very thorough.
I trim it down for the show, but I wanted to give Muggsy Bogues a shout out, not just for his Space Jam appearance because he was great in that, but because he was
Might be Monstars.
he was like a human highlight reel because of like how quick he was. I know current UVA coach Tony Bennett had to guard him in practice because he was Muggsy's backup on Charlotte, and he was like, I was so dog tired after every practice because Muggsy is so damn quick and fast. It's so hard to guard him. So I wanted to give him a shout out. Number 5, boy, I went with your boy Ty Jerome from UVA, the championship team. He was awesome. He's still hanging around the pros. He got hurt this year. He's on Cleveland, I think. So he had like foot surgery and missed a lot of the season. But Ty Jerome was awesome. He was just a steady hand that guided everything. And for me, like that's what your point guard's supposed to be, is the guy you turn to calm things down and get your puppies organized, as you like to say, boy. Number 4.
Onions.
Yes. Number 4 is Steve Blake. Steve Blake,
Maryland.
Yes. What I love about Steve Blake is he was overshadowed for his whole college career by Juan Dixon, because Juan Dixon was electric, right? He was fantastic. But Steve Blake had an amazing NBA career. He lasted like almost 2 decades in the NBA, played for all these different teams. A lot of his teams won, and he just, because of how good he was at being the point guard, it was never for him all about just scoring. It's about what's the right play to do. And I thought that was just amazing that, you know, if you asked anyone who watched that Maryland team win a championship, it would have been Juan Dixon's the sure bet. And not that Juan Dixon didn't have a great career, but Steve Blake stuck around for so long and was effective even when he got older, which to me is amazing. Number 3, I went with John Stockton, the greatest passer ever. It's if you go back and watch some of these highlights, he is
could be the greatest ever.
Yeah, he is moving the ball up the court so quick and making such decisive passes. Like, it's amazing. Like, you feel like you don't see guys do that anymore. Even with how short the shot clock is and has always been, he just you don't see guys often push as fast as he is and be in control. And that was like the difference of him and watching other people. Number 2 is Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul might be the most underrated player ever in the history of the NBA. And I don't think that's that hyperbolic, because you lose him because in all these conversations of like best point guards ever and best guards ever, you lose him because he's bounced around from team to team. But a lot of that isn't his fault. It's not like he sat there and said, oh, get rid of me. Like, I don't want to be here. But every team he's gone to has won. I mean, the biggest example is when he was in Phoenix, like the last couple years before he went to Golden State this year. Phoenix really was like, he was the piece to make them go. Even with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton out there, they still weren't getting over that hump to being true contenders. But Chris Paul shows up, they're contenders all of a sudden. Going to the Clippers, Chris Paul shows up, we're contenders all of a sudden, right? Everywhere he goes, they're a contender. Right, and I think that is the most telling part. We're talking about Corey Perry early in the episode. Chris Paul, he's so good because he's again, that's such a calming presence. He makes the right play all the time, and I love watching him play. I think he is so underrated. He doesn't, even with all his State Farm commercials, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. And number 1 is Steve Nash. Right, it's again telling that all of us have him, either 1 or 2 on our list. But to Doug's point, he talked about how good of a shooter Steve Nash was. We always think of his passing. Steve Nash had so many years where he was in like the 40, 50, 90 club, as in 40% from 3, 50% from 2, and 90% from the free throw line. And he did that multiple times. And like the other people in the club were like lucky to be there 1 year. Like my boy Malcolm Brogdon from UVA, he did that 1 year, 40, 50, 90. You just don't see that. And that's like Doug said, maybe he should have shot more, but to Steve Nash's credit, as the point guard, your job is to make the right decision, and he thought that wasn't the right decision. I'm going to dish it to Amari Stoudemire or Sean Marion or Leandro Barbosa, or all these other slashers that they had.
You love your Sean Marion.
Sean Marion was awesome. He shot 33% from 3 for his career, and he shot the ball like this. How do you shoot 33% with 2 hands? To me, that's amazing. But I digest. Steve Nash, number 1 for me.
Good list.
Steve Nash from 2005 to 2010 went 44% from three, 45.5% from three, 47% from three, 44% from three.
Yeah. Is that good?
How many MVPs?
No
he had,
one
two
talks about
during that
that.
stretch too.
He went back to back, right? Back to back
Yep,
MVPs.
back to back.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't know that we were able to do college point guards. So we're gonna throw out three for you. Some extra college point guards.
Yes.
We're gonna go Drew Neitzel, Michigan State.
Oh my God.
Do we remember him?
No.
Oh my gosh! Get on your YouTube settings. That dude was like starter for 4 years for Michigan State. Little buzz cut. Really good player.
Next thing you're gonna say
Then-
is Aaron Kraft, aren't you?
Nope. Derek Ravio, the original Gonzaga point guard, came before Adam Morrison. He was like the first. That's when Gonzaga was like when Mark Few first got there, and they had that big upset. He was the point guard there and one of their best players. And then obviously the other Jason Williams for Duke. I mean that dude was unbelievable. That dude was unbelievable.
Drew Neitzel looks like he slaps the floor in pickup games.
Dude, Drew Neitzel looks like an absolute unit.
There you go, boys.
I always
my guys made it to the association from college.
It doesn't matter. Your list of shooters is Brady Hayslip from
Brady
Baylor.
Hayslip, yeah. Brady Hayslip's awesome. Love Brady
I will
Hayslip.
say, one of my goals every time for this show is that anyone listening or watching, you learn something new. And today with Doug, you gonna learn today. You gonna learn today.
That's the
I love
profession that he's in.
I love
in
it.
Teaching.
All
right.
Anything else before we wrap this up, boys?
Thanks for being here, Doug. It's so good to see you. We really, I appreciate you being here. I'm not going to speak for these bozos, but I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys want me on, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Doug, stick around after the show. We'll be on. But if we don't have anything else, that's going to do it for us here at What Caught My Eye. Remember, follow us on our Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter at WCME_sports. Go check out our website, WCMEsports.com. Like, comment, subscribe, and check out our episodes that drop every Wednesday at noon on YouTube, on Spotify. We love hearing from our fans. We love hearing from anyone who's willing to talk to us. And if you got suggestions, we'll gladly try to throw them in our show or in our bonus catches from each week. Check out our favorites. Our list will be published on each Friday in case you weren't able to catch all of that craziness that we ran through. But that'll be on Friday. We'll post that to our socials. But again, big thanks to the great Doug Howard for joining us. It's always great to see you. Great to hear from you. And like I said, great to learn something new. That's what I feel like I did today. As always, for the boy Stephen Vesci, for the man Stephen Komlo, I'm the coach Nick Vesci. As always, be decent to each other. Take care, Guatemala. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.
Bye now.